All right, we are live. Welcome to another meeting of the House Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions Committee. Today, we are considering 4 bills. They're all committee bills, so these have all been seen by the committee. These have all been worked by the committee over the interim. So hopefully, today's meeting will go very smoothly. And with that, go ahead and call the roll.
Okay, Representative Chadwick.
Here.
Representative Haroldson.
Here.
Representative Harshman.
Here.
Representative Knapp.
Here.
Representative Newsom.
Here.
Representative Ottman.
Here.
Representative Wiley.
Here.
Representative Yin. Chairman Olson.
Here. All right. The first bill we have for consideration is Senate File 26, Special District Vacancies. So this bill clarifies the term of office for members of special districts when that have filled a vacancy. The bill is very short. Page 2, subsection C is amended to add the language that the term of office of an appointee shall not be extended in any manner beyond the term of office that the appointee was appointed to fill. And that's the bill. If a vacancy exists following a regular election, the vacancy shall be filled as provided in subsection A of this section. All right, Secretary of State's office. I almost don't know what to do not seeing the Secretary of State here himself. Ah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe Rubino, the Policy Director and Counsel at the Secretary of State's office. Absolutely. So with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy you already did a walkthrough of the bill. This bill came forward from our office, from the Secretary, at the beginning of the interim, and it was proposed. It deals with the extension or the current statutes in permission of an extension unilaterally by the board, and concerns that were brought to our office by constituents around the state with the fact that there's nothing currently in state statute that would prevent a board unilaterally from extending the term of a special district appointment. And so the bill it's very simple. It just clears up some of that ambiguity, and it specifies that the term of office of an appointee to a vacancy, it only goes through the, it can't be extended beyond the term that the appointee was appointed to fill. And so we had lots of spirited discussion around this at several of the meetings during the interim. Following testimony from special districts and county clerks during the interim, our office engaged with sort of a mini working group on this subject. Senator Barlow, Clerk Freese from Fremont County, and Mr. Pepper, and I'm not sure if Mr. Pepper's here today or if he'll be joining online concerning some slight revisions to the bill and just ensuring that its interaction with the principal acts of special districts, which would take precedence concerning the actual term of office, whether terms they vary across special districts. Some terms go until the next election, director election. Some terms of office extend to a date certain. And so the language in the bill's current form, I think, encompasses that intent of the bill, and that's achieved there. So leaving it flexible enough to apply to special districts regardless of the length of the original appointment, and that term specifically prohibiting any extension beyond the term of office of an appointee, and providing that it shall not be appointed beyond the term that the appointee was appointed to fill. So with that, happy to take any questions.
Questions for Mr. Rubino? All right, thank you. Do we have other public testimony in the room? We have public testimony online. Only if he wants to testify. Did he say he was going to testify on this bill?
Mr. Pepper has his hand up.
Okay, then yeah, go ahead and admit him. Mr. Pepper?
Yeah, Mr. Pepper just needs to turn on his mic and his video.
All right, Mr. Pepper. Welcome.
Good morning. Yeah, how quickly I forget how to run these things. On and for the bill, Mr. Chairman. We didn't necessarily see much of an issue with this in the 220 plus special districts that own and operate water and wastewater that we deal with. Most of them knew you appoint somebody, they serve until the appointment reaches its next election, and then the person either has to step down or run for election. But we have no problems with the clarifying language. And with that, I'd stand for questions or move on.
Well, thank you, Mr. Pepper, for your testimony. Committee, any questions? All right, we do appreciate you joining us and giving us your thoughts. Do we have any additional testimony online?
No one with their hand up. at
All
this
right, very good. With that, I will close public testimony. Committee, what is your pleasure? It's been more than moved. Moved by Representative Harshman and seconded by Representative Haroldson. Any amendments to this bill? All right, question being called on Senate File 26. Please take the roll.
Okay, Representative Chadwick? Aye. Representative Haroldson?
Aye.
Representative Harshman?
Aye.
Representative Knapp?
Aye.
Representative Newsom?
Aye.
Representative Ottman?
Aye.
Representative Wiley?
Aye.
Representative Yin?
Aye.
Chairman Olson?
Aye.
That's 9 ayes, do pass.
Perfect. And Representative Ottman, will you floor manage this bill for us? Should be pretty straightforward.
Mr. Chairman, yes, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. All right, the next Senate file for our consideration is Senate File 27, Special Districts Bond Election Exemption. Let's see, an exemption to special district bond elections for improvement in service districts and water and sewer districts. Okay, this comes to us from Mr. Pepper. Can we go ahead and let Mr. Pepper in? Welcome back, Mr. Pepper.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Mark Pepper, Executive Director of the Wyoming Association of Rural Water Systems. As I mentioned in the last bill, we represent, and I appear today on behalf of the 220 plus special districts that own and operate water and wastewater facilities, whether they are organized under Chapter 41-10 for water and sewer districts or 1812 improvement and service districts. But this bill is specifically targeted to those that own and operate utility facilities. Up until right now, these utilities do have to go to a special district election pursuant to 22-29. So they have to have a 90-day notice. They have to arrange for election judges. They have to go through and make sure that the county clerk has the correct and updated voter rolls, and then hold the election. It's the opinion of some lawyers around the state that that has to take place before they can apply for state and federal funding. I believe that's the primary impetus for the legislature several moons ago providing the same exemption to municipalities, that we're also going to be doing utility projects funded solely from operations, i.e. rates or fees. And so we're asking for this to be put on a similar standing as municipalities. These are utility projects. They're done to primarily address issues to maintain or return to compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act or the Clean Water Act. There are public meetings that are held to explain the project prior to submittal to the funding agencies. As I indicated, these probably are done to make sure that public health is maintained. The type of projects we're talking about is major repairs or replacement of aging infrastructure. The people within those districts probably know where all the breaks are and when are they going to finally fix it. So it's not really a surprise to them. It also, the people who are making these decisions are the elected boards, and they're elected by their neighbors. So anything they do in their district affects them as much as it affects their neighbors. And again, this is just for special purpose districts, for the utilities. And last but not least, these aren't projects that would extend outside the boundaries of a district. That requires additional votes of the people to expand boundaries and do some of those kinds of things. So this would just be within the boundaries of a special district, whether it's for betterment, replacement, repair, or potentially they could be extending a line for new housing within the district. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would stand for questions.
Thank you for walking us through the bill, Mr. Pepper. Now that once you go back over it, I do recall this bill. I had a hard time recalling it at first, so I appreciate you walking us through it. Committee, do you have questions for Mr. Pepper? All right, don't go anywhere. We might circle back. Do we have any public testimony? Do we have anyone else signed up online who would like to testify?
I don't see any other hands up online right now.
All right, well, with that, I will close public testimony. Again, Mr. Pepper, thank you. Committee, what is your pleasure?
Move the bill.
It's been moved by Representative Chadwick and seconded by someone to my right, I heard. Representative Wiley. All right. Are there any amendments to this bill? No? Seeing none, sensing your urge to vote on this bill? Diane, please do a roll call vote on Senate File 27.
Okay, Representative Chadwick,
Aye.
Representative Haroldson,
No.
Representative Harshman,
Aye.
excuse me,
Aye.
thank you. Representative Knapp,
No.
Representative Newsom,
Aye.
Representative Ottman,
Aye.
Representative Wiley,
Aye.
Representative Yin,
Aye.
Chairman Olson.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes and 2 noes. Do
Perfect.
pass.
Thank you. Representative Chadwick, would you mind floor managing this bill? All right. I was going to go with Representative Haroldson, but now I can't. It's hard to.
I can.
Yeah. Yeah, no. No, thank you. All right. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 24, Public Service Commission Integrated Resource Plans. Public Service Commission. In committee, you will recall this, of course, is an interim bill. I don't know. It's Friday afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee. this bill was slightly amended in the Senate, but I think the only amendment was, the only language amendment was at our request, and that was just,
To eliminate everything except for subsection A, is that what it did?
right, Mr. Chairman, that we basically requested that they delete all the detail about the rules.
Because you
That's-
can just do that in rule.
which is more our convention, I think, for our agency. We had borrowed the concept of this from Utah. They put too much in their statutes, in my humble opinion. So that was the only change. We do have an appropriation issue, however. So do you want me to explain the bill again, Mr. Chairman?
If you
Just a
would, it'd be
quick
helpful to
refresher.
refresh
Sorry.
our memories, yeah.
So right now, under our current rules, we have very light review, I would say, of integrated resource plans. Integrated resource plans are the 10, or in the case of Rocky Mountain Power, 20-year plans that they do to plan out their system. And what we do now is we review it, staff participates, we don't really hold a hearing, and then we just determine if we're going to accept it for filing. Colorado has a much more intense, robust process, and I believe that, don't quote me on this, that they actually approve the integrated resource plan. Oregon has a more robust process. We borrowed this from Utah, again, because it's sort of mid-level. And we're acknowledging the resource, under this statute, we would acknowledge the resource plan. There would be an opportunity for a contested case hearing if any parties objected. In reality, we have a number of electric utilities who file integrated resource plans, but I think it's likely that most of them would not go to a full contested case hearing unless there were an issue. This also doesn't change the further requirements. So if we acknowledge an integrated resource plan, they still have to come in and apply for a certificate of public necessity and convenience. We're not blessing it, we're just acknowledging it and telling them if we think it has major issues, but it's not an approval. So it's sort of I'd say what we have now is like limited review, and then other states approve integrated resource plans, or at least portions of them. What we're looking for is mid-tier review so that we get in more on the front end of the planning process and really can be better informed and perhaps provide guidance on some of our integrated resource plans.
Questions, committee? Chairman Throne, so right now, you always receive an IRP?
Mr. Chairman, no, we require if states file them in, or if utilities file them in other states, that they also file them with us.
Okay,
Do I have that right? Did I say that correctly? Or by order of the commission. We always maintain authority to order things.
and just kind of anecdotally, how often is that you would have an IRP then?
So, Mr. Chairman, obviously we have one from Pacific Core. That's probably the one that requires the most attention. The Black Hills companies file an IRP, Montana Dakota Utility files an IRP, and then also Dominion as a gas utility files an IRP.
In this bill, we actually define what an integrated resource plan is. In any way, does that definition change what you've already received? Or is it gonna look substantially, is it just gonna look, in other words, would those companies have to come back and file a new IRP because of the way it's defined in our statute?
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe so. And I doubt that this is prospective. I don't think we wouldn't go back and ask them for one.
And they're good for, you said they're usually a 10 to 20-year forecast?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, they file them every 2 years as a rule.
Okay.
At least that's our major utility. PacifiCorp has the most robust integrated resource plan.
And you were going to talk to us about an appropriation that was added in on the Senate side?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So this bill, in my mind, is really sort of a companion bill with Senate File 23, which is next on your agenda. And we have to do the fiscal notes separately. So between the two bills, we really need two people. But what happened was, on the Senate side, in Senate File 23, we got an appropriation for one person, but it's not enough. We're looking at a senior analyst for this position, which requires quite a bit of expertise. So I've sort of gone back and forth, but I think that the best approach would be to put one position in each bill. And so the appropriation in this bill is, and I'm looking at page 4 of Senate File 24, is $600,000, which is not enough for us to get 2 analysts. It's like 1 3/4.
Oh, both
Of the-
positions are senior analysts.
Both positions would be senior analysts.
Okay. And this is like 1.5?
Maybe 2/3, Mr. Chairman. So what I would propose is, make sure I'm looking at the right numbers. Everybody look at the numbers so I don't mess this up. For one analyst plus, we'd have to do some construction at our office, which would be a one-time expense. Would be $376,000 for the biennium.
And then we're not on 23 yet, but I noticed 23 is only 200,000.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Corporations Committee, Senate Corporations gave us a haircut before we even got to the people who like to give haircuts. So I would be asking for a similar amount in 23. So we'd have one in each bill. And then maybe the two can go to appropriations together. I'm assuming,
Right,
obviously, that you guys pass both of them.
okay. And did you say that part of the 376,000 is for renovations? Is that what I heard?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, our executive director estimates that we'd probably have to spend about $20,000 on moving a wall around. We're in rented space, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
She's pretty good at figuring these things out, so I can get more information if
no,
I need to, but I'm not the expert.
no, I think that's probably good enough. I just want to have enough that when we get to committee number 2, that I at least know what's going on. Okay. All right, anything else on the bill?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'll look to my left and my right.
Perfect.
And just in case you're interested, we don't have Deputy Chair Petrie because there's a grass fire west of his house
Oh, boy.
right now, so he had to go home.
Well, we hope everything goes okay with that.
Yeah, it's a little dry out there.
It is, yeah. Committee, any questions for the Public Service Commission? Nope. All right, well, thank you for walking us back through the bill and for clarifying the appropriation. Public testimony. Mr. Kaysen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Rick Kaysen with Rocky Mountain Power. In the spirit of time and for some of you wishing to travel, we will be very brief on this. So,
Thank you.
as I have shared in prior meetings with this committee, an integrated resource plan is exactly that. It is a plan. It's always evolving. As noted, Rocky Mountain Power, under the Pacific Corp umbrella, we file a formal integrated resource plan every 2 years with the commission here in Wyoming. And it goes through a lot of scrutiny within the company as that is put together before it becomes a formal filing. And that scrutiny exists on all stages as we put these together. Those plans are 2 years, like I noted, they're filed every 2 years formally, but they're looked at 2 years, 5 years, 10 years plus out for planning purposes to try to meet our customer needs. The integrated resource plans are ongoing. They're looked at, they just don't sit on a shelf. They're a tool. That's what's really important about it. So, excuse me, we are okay with this bill as it stands. As noted, we are already doing something similar in the states of Utah and Oregon, again, under that Pacific Corp umbrella. We ask that we try to be as consistent as possible with practices, looking for the efficiencies, the processes, and everything else, and again, in accord with the guidance from our Public Service Commission. So we're okay with the bill, Mr. Chairman. With that, I'll try to answer questions you all may have.
Thank you, Mr. Kaysen. My question that I asked the Public Service Commission, is there anything under the definition of IRP in this bill that would change what an IRP would look like from Rocky Mountain Power?
Mr. Chairman, I do not believe so at this point in time. Now, again, as I noticed, it is a plan. Something may develop that would perhaps require a revisit on that. But as we stand today, I see no problems.
You said you already file IRPs in Oregon and in Utah?
They are filed, again, please keep in mind, Mr. Chairman, these are, the integrated resource plan is filed in all of the 6 states in which Pacific Corp operates. And
Those states require it. Is that
Pardon?
I just thought you said something about those states. Is it because those states require the IRP?
No.
Is that what you were saying?
No, Mr. Chairman, what I was trying to indicate, we file it because, again, take those 6 states and take that first term integrated. Our systems are integrated. And so, again, it is a process where we look at all 6 states and just not on an individual state basis.
Are there, and I can't remember how the states are different, but are there states that you file an IRP in where they actually, where a commission has to approve the IRP?
Mr. Chairman, to the best of my knowledge, as Commissioner or Chairwoman Throne said, they are acknowledged in those respective states and everything else. I am not aware of the approval process, but I can do some follow-up as needed.
I'm just trying to make sure our process will be substantially similar. Our bill says that the commission will review and provide guidance to an affected utility based on their IRP, and that, in their experience, that's similar to the other states?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's consistent with what we're doing in Utah and Oregon at this time.
Okay, perfect. Committee, other questions for Mr. Kaysen? All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Other public testimony? No? All right.
Mr. Chairman, I do have someone online that just raised their hand. It's
Is that Ms.
Abby
Briggerman? Go ahead and admit her. Welcome, Ms. Briggerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me all right?
We sure can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee today. I am appearing, my name is Abby Briggerman from Holland and Hart. I'm appearing here on behalf of the Wyoming industrial energy consumers. I'm providing my support for this legislation. We appreciate the committee's attention to this matter. This legislation puts Wyoming on equal grounds with other states that exert influence over the integrated resource plans of multi-jurisdictional utilities. I do have one suggested edit to the proposed legislation for your consideration, if you would like to hear it.
We sure would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This goes to the definition of integrated resource plan on line 20 of page 2. It could be read potentially that if a utility elects not to include one of these elements in their IRP, that it does not qualify as an IRP for purposes of the statute. I think that would be an incorrect ruling, but it's a potential ambiguity. And so I suggest that at line 20 on page 2, the text be changed to integrated resource plan shall include at a minimum a plan that contains. And those are all my comments.
Okay, I think I got it. I was just seeing if that tracks in. So under your amendment, I guess I was a little confused on what you thought the interpretation might be. Because under your, you could read this as requiring all of the information listed in the definition. I think you could already read it that way. You're suggesting that it could be read how?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concern is that a utility could elect to do to create their IRP without one of the elements in there listed by the legislation, and in doing so, circumvent the definition of IRP in the legislation and the legislation itself.
Okay. Well, my hope would be that if that were I think it's all required, so my hope would be that the commission would send it back to, but maybe your definition is enough to make it clear enough, I guess.
Mr. Chairman, my proposed edit is admittedly an edit out of an abundance of caution. If the committee does not intend the legislation to read that way at all, I think that's quite sufficient.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk about it for sure. We appreciate that. Committee, any questions for Ms. Briggerman? All right, well, thank you for your testimony and for your possible amendment.
Thank you very much.
Any other public testimony online? Nope. Okay. All right, with that, I will close public testimony. Committee, what is your pleasure?
Move the bill.
Been moved by Representative Chadwick and seconded by Representative Harshman. Amendments. Would anyone like to make Ms. Briggerman's amendment? I think it does clarify. I think it clarifies the. Yeah, Representative Harshman.
Mr. Chairman, does it, could you read what you have, what she wrote, and then I'll read what I was.
Yeah, I wrote down on page 2, line 21, shall include at a minimum a plan that contains, and striking contains, so that in whole it would read, integrated resource plan means a plan that shall include at a minimum a plan that contains, and then from there is the rest of the section.
So then I just wrote in, integrated resource plan means a plan that contains each of the following.
I like
Say the
that.
same thing.
Yeah.
Maybe easier.
It sounds better.
Or all of the following. But
Okay? Integrated resource plan means a plan that contains each of the following. Seconded by Representative Haroldson. Any discussion on this amendment? Since you're ready to vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that amendment has been adopted. Diane, does that make sense? Did you get it?
No, I don't think I got all of it.
Okay, on
I have,
page 221, you would, after contains, insert the language, each of the following.
so shall at a minimum is not part of it, is that
Nope.
correct? Okay,
Nope.
so I have contains each of the following, yes.
Yep.
I have that.
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay. Committee, how about this appropriation? The public, it says 600,000 on page 4. The Public Service Commission is only asking for 376,000.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Newsom.
I would make an amendment that on page 4, line 7, we change 2 to 1, so 1 additional full-time employee. And then on page
Hold on, sorry, I was
sorry.
distracted. Say that again.
Page 4, line 7, change the 2 to a 1.
Okay.
And then on page, say that same page 4, on page 15, appropriated $376,000.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Representative Harshman.
Mr. Chairman.
Were you saying that this is only for 1 year, Representative Harshman?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Oh,
I was just somewhat confused, but I think I got it. But Mr. Chairman, you'd probably just a little cleanup and they'll catch us, but on line 12 would be this full-time position. So we'll take the plural out.
okay. Any other discussion on this amendment? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. That amendment has been adopted. Dan, did you get that one?
Yes, you want to have 1 full-time position, and line 7, you corrected the word these to this on line 12. And on 15, you want 376,000 instead of the 600,000.
Yeah, and I guess there's actually some more cleanup language.
Line 9.
Line 9 should go to 1 analyst.
Line 9 would be 1. Analyst. Line 16, what's on line 16? Oh, we already got that. I saw something else. Oh, line 19 would be position. And I think we got it. Diane, did you get it all? All right. And then I had a little amendment as well to page 4, line 18. There's just a typo. Between for and purpose, it should say the. Public Service Commission for the purpose of funding. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, did you get that one? Okay, any other amendments to this bill? All right, Diane, will you do a roll call vote on Senate File 24?
Okay, Representative Chadwick, Representative Haroldson? Representative Harshman? Representative Knapp?
Aye.
Representative Newsom? Representative Ottman?
Aye.
Representative Wiley? Representative Yin?
No.
Chairman Olson?
Aye.
That's 8 ayes, 1 noes, do pass with amendments.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to our last bill for the day, Senate File 23, Energy Resource Procurement. Welcome back, Public Service Commission.
So, Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned before, Senate File 23 is somewhat of a companion to the Integrated Resource Planning Bill. So once, and again, we're mostly referring to our largest utility, but it's not as if other utilities wouldn't also be subject to this. But what our largest utility does is they do their integrated resource plan, and then they take the action plan from that, and they tend to go out to an all-source procurement of how they're going to obtain the power that they've identified that they need in their integrated resource plan. And so if you think back to all the facilities that we're accustomed to in Wyoming, they're kind of just one big thing. But now in this new system that we're all living under, there might be a multitude of sources of power that they would procure through their all-source procurement plan. And so again, I guess I could be more creative and stop suggesting that we borrow from Utah, but it's sort of a balanced approach in Utah. So, and actually Idaho and, I'm not sorry, Oregon and Washington also review RFPs. So basically it's just ensuring that the process is implemented fairly. We get a chance to review it on the front end, so that they're going out and they're procuring the power at the best prices they can procure it. Whether that means they acquire a project, whether they do it through a power purchase agreement, or they build it themselves. Because what has happened in the few years that I've been on the commission is the commission is asked to approve a certificate of public convenience and necessity for a project that the company has already vetted through this all-source procurement process, and we haven't even seen it yet. I mean, they still have to demonstrate the CPCN requirements, but we're kind of coming into the story too late to be able to understand it and influence the story. It's sort of a similar reason to why I think the integrated resource planning bill is a good tool for us to have. So hopefully, one of the key features, just one last thing, Mr. Chairman, one of the key features of this bill is it provides for an independent evaluator, and that is then paid for by either the bidders in the projects, or it could be perhaps billed to the ratepayers, not general fund money. But again, with a multi-jurisdictional utility, I think it's safe to assume that they would bring their independent evaluator report from the other state. We're not duplicating effort. I think we're just getting the same information that they're already presenting in other states, so that we're informed and not the last to know.
Okay, Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Commissioner, just a question for verification or clarification, I guess. If what I just heard you say is that they'll already be getting these reports because they have multi-jurisdictional, and so that it'll just be a duplicate, then why do we need an extra person? Thank you.
Commissioner Thorne?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Representative Ottman, because we'll need the person to evaluate it. The independent evaluator is not us, they're independent. So we would like staff to be able to follow the process more closely.
Where does the independent evaluator come from? Who typically would do something like that?
That's a good question, Mr. Chairman.
Do they come from Utah?
They very well might come from Utah, but there are experts out there who specialize in this sort of thing. Could come from Oregon.
Okay.
Oh. Commissioner Robinson's pointed out in a key detail that we do appoint the independent evaluator. So if we didn't like what Utah or Oregon did, we could pick somebody else. But the truth is there aren't a whole ton of people out there in this field. Probably just a handful of experts.
Yeah, that's what I would guess too. Okay. Representative Harshman?
Mr. Chairman, section 2 there on page 7, the position. Just wanted to kind of check if those numbers are all right. Everything's good or not?
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman.
Throne?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Harshman. No, so this, we would need to increase this appropriation to 356,000. I put the little $20,000 in the other one for the construction, which would just be one time.
Okay,
Easy enough.
thank you.
So between the two, it's one less, if you amend this one, it would be 2 positions instead of 3 and a slightly less total. Sorry, I'm having trouble speaking today, Mr. Chairman. Slightly less money than the other 2 bills together.
Right. Okay. Committee, any other questions for the commission? All right. Thank you. Public testimony. Everyone is so eager.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Tyler Lindholm. I'm the State Director for Americans for Prosperity. We are on and against this piece of legislation, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. If the state wants to make sure that ratepayers are treated fairly, it can certainly do so in a number of ways other than micromanaging a private business. Instead of the structures of the bidding process as outlined in this text, the legislature could require the Utility Commission to disallow certain costs and expenses that are not fair, just, and reasonable, which probably already exist in some fashion already in statute. Thus, you could just vote no on the bill and rest assured you would be taking care of business. The language directing the commission to evaluate which costs and expenses are eligible for recovery through rates that could connect that cost recovery to a variety of factors, including reliability and cost. In such a scenario, the reasons for a possible disallowance of costs could be related to the costs, expenses, and reliability of a particular generating facility. Here, I think that concept is generally covered in the legislation already seen prior through your committee. So I think you've already covered a lot of those scenarios, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This legislation, in my organization's opinion, is just micromanaging and just going over that line. Does that really amount to ratepayers saving money? Has to be the question. And in the reality, the way that we see this legislation, it does create more costs for these types of business entities to be able to live up to this legislation. And as we know, all businesses pass their costs on to their customers, i.e. the ratepayers in the state of Wyoming, who are already struggling with costs. So with that, I'll stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Questions from Mr. Lindholm? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kaysen and Mr. Bush. Mr. Kaysen.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the benefit of the committee, hopefully this will be the last time you see my face this week. But with respect to Senate File 23, Rocky Mountain Power can live with this bill. As noted, we're already doing something similar in the states of Utah and Oregon, but we do not have to be copycats per se. But again, we look at the word consistency, and so that be part of the thought when we're looking at what the requirements of this bill. We, of course, believe and practice the prudency when it comes to our resource procurement. That's nothing new. It's been part of the practices for many, many years. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. The one concern of the bill is the independent evaluator as proposed. I understand the idea behind an independent evaluator, but as we just heard, in my opinion, the Public Service Commission, and if they are lucky enough to get the 2 new senior analysts, they would have, I think, the expertise to do the reviews of the resource procurement plans. And remember, we also have the Office of Consumer Advocacy to look over and what's in the best interest of our customers as well, from when you think about the costs that are related to procurement. Using an independent evaluator may cause delays. I'm sure there may be differences of opinions. As we heard, there's not a whole lot of resource pool out there for these evaluators, so there may be time delays in this thing. Time delays may cause loss of money, loss of opportunity to acquire some of the resources that we do need. So I'm just not sure that independent evaluator is in the best interest of the state of Wyoming. Again, at the end of the day, we have to keep in mind what is going to be in the best interest of our customers. And as you've heard many, many times, rates have to be prudent. They have to be reasonable for that end of the line ratepayer. Again, we can live with the bill, but really have some sincere concerns about that independent evaluator provision. With that, Mr. Chairman, try to answer questions you all may have.
Mr. Kaysen, if I understood Commissioner Throne correctly, or if I heard her correctly, she said that this statute in general comes from Utah. So I'm assuming Utah has the independent evaluator provision and you operate in Utah. What is your experience with the independent evaluator in Utah?
Mr. Chairman, to the best of my knowledge, it works okay, but again, there are some potential hiccups.
Okay, thank you. Committee questions for Mr. Kaysen? All right, Mr. Bush?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. David Bush here with Black Hills Energy. Along the same lines, we have concerns about some of the, I don't know that I go so far as say micromanaging, but there's definitely more layers of oversight here. Just fine, it's the will of the legislature, and I understand where we are these days. One point that has been brought by my regulatory team is the costs associated with this, and actually with the previous bill, especially if we have to do as many steps as now, it seems like we have to with 24 as well, there are potential for costs to go up with that. We had a demand side management study that was done for our latest IRP for here in Cheyenne. That was approximately $400,000. So we may now be in a situation where we have to do that each time with that bill and as part of this as well. So just pointing that out more than anything, there's a chance that costs go up as we start adding more layers of hoops that we jump through. But again, recognizing that this is, legislature is in a point where they're trying to be more engaged, have the commission more engaged in the process. So I understand where we are on that, but in general, Mr. Chairman, I think we'd prefer not to have this bill pass, but we are where we are.
So I'm a little confused because Black Hills already submits an IRP to the state of Wyoming.
Correct.
So why would you have this $400,000 expense?
It was a specific study for, demand side management is like conservation. Basically, it's where people are lowering their energy usage. And there's a piece of that goes into the IRP. It all factors in now. And so demand side management along with energy procurement is now a larger piece of what's happening. I'm pointing out that the notes I received from my team is that study, we did it this past time. I don't know that we do it every single time for our IRPs, but it was a $400,000 study that was added into the cost. Usually our cost is under $1 million for our IRPs. This time it was 1.2 with that other piece added in there.
Okay.
So it just, again, as we move into more requirements, it requires more of these kind of costs, and those could be adding up.
So when we were on 24, I didn't ask you this question, but I asked Rocky Mountain Power the question of whether the definition of IRP would require something different. You're saying it would because it requires a demand side option, and that's not currently required in the other states that you file in?
It's not in South Dakota as far as I know. In South Dakota's process, sorry, Mr. Chairman, South Dakota's process is less restrictive than Wyoming's. We basically, my understanding is we file the IRP with South Dakota and just give it to them, right? They don't have the oversight and authority to do a whole lot with it. So it's a different animal than, say, Colorado, which is, we're not in Utah, so I don't have any experience with Utah, but Colorado is a much more restrictive process from what I've been told by my folks. And I don't cover Colorado, so this is just what I'm hearing from the people that do work down there. Colorado has a lot more that you have to do, which increased the cost. Our IRP down there was closer to $2 million versus the 1.2 that we did here. So again, Colorado requires a lot more because frankly, they're Colorado and they just want more control over what's happening and more information coming in there. All that information, the evaluators, the tests that we have to do, all the reports, that all adds up, so.
Other questions for Black Hills? Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would these bills promote better efficiency or better loss of time in accidents or not finding things or maybe some, I don't know. Are they advantageous to the running of your company?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Ottman, generally the IRPs are just focused on the resource planning side and not, say, safety or business management per se. If I think that's what your question might be. This is more along the lines of how much power do we think we're going to need over the next 10, 20 years? How are we going to get that? What's the least cost and best available options for that? Realizing as well that there are also restrictions with reliable dispatchable power that we have to have as well. So that's more of what the IRPs are focused on is that resource procurement piece of it.
So that kind of, Mr. Chairman, that kind of piggybacks onto what I was wondering. Is it to have this done by the PSC, would that help in that plan? Because they're here in Wyoming and you would have that person with the PSC to help you look at those resource managements. What, is that help, or do you not see it that way?
Mr.
Bush.
Chairman, Representative, yes, and we do work with the PSC and also, as Mr. Kaysen pointed out, the OCA, the Office of Consumer Advocacy. As we go through our plan, they look at all that stuff and can give some thoughts. It is not as restrictive as it would be with this plan and the other bill now. I would say they are effective in what they do, in that the rate increase that was most recently in the news that was asked for was 30%, and it got trimmed to 5%. That's a pretty big haircut. Now, you can argue that it maybe never would have got there had some of these been in place. That I don't know. But I do think the commission did its job with the existing rules and statutes that it has to work under now, and would argue that we're in a pretty good place there already, so.
Representative Harshman?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And maybe for both of you gentlemen, that, you know, just on page 3, you talked about this independent evaluator, and, you know, and you look on down on line 21, the commission shall appoint an independent, and if we change that word to may, gives the commission a little more. I don't know if you necessarily have to appoint one on every case, you know? I don't know, just wanted to throw that out there, Mr. Chairman, and see thoughts on that. If you have any thoughts.
Mr. Bush? Mr. Kaysen?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Harshman, I actually had that word circled on my sheet as well. I think that could give the commission some leeway, and in some of these cases, an independent evaluator may not be needed, and there may be a way to save some money that way without having to go through that process, or save time, or, you know, they may be able to speak better to that than me, but.
Mr. Kaysen?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Harshman, I too had that word circled, and we always like to have a little flexibility. And I think this does provide the Public Service Commission some latitude if an independent evaluator is really necessary. Again, as identified, Rocky Mountain Power, Pacific Corp has the largest kind of portfolio that they're addressing. So perhaps for smaller utilities, an independent evaluator is not needed. And based on the information that could be filed by Rocky Mountain Power and a review done by the commission, by the Office of Consumer Advocacy, an independent evaluator may not be needed based on their findings. So I think may would be a very good term.
Any other questions, committee?
Any other, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Representative
Did
Harshman.
you have any other word circled? Or are we just one for one?
You had a big X drawn through the entire bill.
Not necessarily, just maybe a little X.
I did not have anything else circled in there, Mr. Chairman, or any big X's.
All right. Very good. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Any other public testimony in the room? Looks like we're going to go to Ms. Briggerman. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, my name is Abby Briggerman from Holland and Hard on behalf of the Wyoming Industrial Energy Consumers. And for these brief comments, I'll just explain that WIEC, the Wyoming Industrial Energy Consumers, is an organization that includes 20 of Rocky Mountain Power's largest industrial customers. Collectively, they consume over half of Wyoming's Rocky Mountain Power Wyoming's load. We are in support of this legislation, and we greatly appreciate the committee's attention to this legislation as well. The issue of an independent evaluator has come up. As a general matter, we support the inclusion of an independent evaluator in this process. Both Oregon and Utah have independent evaluators as part of the RFP process that Rocky Mountain Power goes through in those states. And I will note that even though those two states use independent evaluators, as interveners in PSC proceedings in Wyoming, we are not allowed to gain access to those reports. They are considered highly confidential, and we are denied access to the confidential portions. So including an independent evaluator in legislation now would again put Wyoming on equal footing with other states that do use this process. This legislation would help keep rates low and keep Rocky Mountain Power costs as low as possible. So again, we appreciate your time. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and that concludes my my comments on this piece of legislation. Thank you.
Questions for Ms. Briggerman? Thank you, Ms. Briggerman. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Any other public testimony online? All right, I will close public testimony. Committee, what is your pleasure? It's been moved by Representative Harshman and seconded by Representative Chadwick. Any amendments to this bill?
Chairman.
Yes, Representative Harshman.
Mr. Chairman, page 3, line 21, strike shall and insert may. The commission may appoint. That's how it would read on page 3, line 21.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded by Representative Chadwick. Any discussion on this amendment? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, that amendment has been adopted. Any other amendments? We need to amend the appropriation.
Page 7, they adjust the appropriation on line 13 and on line 12 to 356,000. That's a biennial number from the 200 that's typed in on 12 and the numeric on 13.
All right, it's been moved
Second.
and seconded by Representative Chadwick. Any discussion on this amendment? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That amendment has been adopted. Diane, did you get both of those? Any other amendments? All right. Diane, will you please do a roll call vote on Senate File 23?
Representative Chadwick?
Aye.
Representative Haroldson?
Aye.
Representative Harshman?
Aye.
Representative Knapp?
Aye.
Representative Newsom?
Aye.
Representative Ottman? Representative Wiley? Representative Yin?
Aye.
Chairman Olson?
Aye.
That's 9 ayes, do pass with amendments.
Great. Representative Knapp, would you be willing to floor manage this one for us? Yes. All right, thank you for that. All right, committee, with that, we are adjourned. Safe travels back to your communities if you're leaving this weekend, and if you are, then we'll see you Monday.